Do we still love the internet? You know, it seems like a crazy question, but I asked the question because of some of the things that you hear. Some of the crazy stuff, the scary stuff. When I scroll through the headlines, I see all kinds of nefarious activities. Hacking, cyber attacking, cyberbullying, so forth. And I think it detracts from our appreciation of all the wonderful things that the internet provides and enables. We are over 3 billion people, each and every one of us connected on a single, interoperable, global platform, with amazing advances for public health, economic development, social, human exchange. And yet that's not what makes the news. That's not what makes the scary headlines. There's one particular headline that I wanted to mention I've been seeing lately. It goes something like this. The Obama administration is giving away control of the internet. Or America is surrendering the internet. And I find that particularly jarring because the truth is so much more inspiring. And it involves all of you. And you should be proud, as I'll explain in a minute. For those of you who haven't seen this scary headline, I'll let you know what's happening. A technical coordinating function of my organization, ICANN, is being privatized and globalized. And that's a good thing. The announcement is there. But to explain how a simple announcement like that can generate a scary headline, I'd like to make the following observation. I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems like people's interest and opinions and anxiety about the internet is increasing at a rapid pace, but our technical knowledge, that is to say, knowing how the internet actually works, is not keeping pace. And I can't think of a better way to illustrate this than the true story of the head of state who pounded his desk recently and said, "How did the internet get into my country? Who runs the internet? Get me the internet on the phone." And you can just imagine the poor staffer that had to run out and figure out who runs the internet. And he probably looked it up on the internet, of course. And I don't know if you've ever asked yourself this question or if you've ever looked it up, but I am going to give you the answer right here on the stage, right now. Who runs the internet? Nobody. No single organization, government, person, group of people, institution, or company runs the internet. And to understand that, we need to understand a little bit about the internet's architecture. I'm an economist, I'm not an engineer. I'm fortunate to work with some of the great engineer pioneers that created this technology. They cringe when I simplify talking about this, and I know there are engineers here that might be cringing. But here's what they tell me. The internet was not designed for control, it was not designed for security, it was designed for openness and scalability. It's actually a collection of networks, many tens of thousands of independently operated networks that use a system of protocols and voluntary standards to interconnect with each other. And even the data that travels on these networks, it travels in diffuse and nonlinear ways. So you see, the concepts of control and internet aren't really very compatible. And that's hard for people to get their head around, especially if they're kind of people that are used to being in charge. They want somebody to be in charge. Now, try as they might, these pioneers that architected the internet were not able to decentralize every single aspect, and that's where ICANN comes in. First of all, as you'll recall, I mentioned there were voluntary standards and protocols that need to be signed up to if you want to join your network to the internet. And we maintain that rule book. We maintain with our partners the registries of these standards. The other thing we do is in our name, and we might be better known for this. The Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It's the names and numbers, the addresses of the internet. Every website, every person, every device needs its own unique destination. No two addresses can be the same. And if you think about the 3 billion of us and the many more billions of devices, that's an incredible scaling continually growing system. And that needs a central point of coordination. And it's technical and it's wonky, but it's really important because it's what keeps the internet global, scalable, and one connected platform. You know these names. They're the domain names that you enter into a browser. If you're a machine, you don't need a name to remember. You can use a number. So IP addresses is one form of number. And all of this looking up addresses and looking up numbers, it happens in the blink of an eye. And it happens about 48 billion times a day. And you don't even notice, all because of this wonderful system. And it happens in a very decentralized way. But the basic rule book and that root directory, that basic address book, requires central coordination. ICANN also does something else that's very important. We convene a community. And why do we need to do that? Because it's not the corporation I work for, the nonprofit ICANN, that makes the rules and policies that will evolve with the internet. It's actually the community of users that need those rules and standards. And that brings me back to the beginnings of ICANN and to that headline that I was talking about, because in 1998, when we were founded, the then Clinton administration put in place a symbolic no-fee contract. Significantly, it was with the Commerce Department. And why did they do that? They wanted this new organization to be as far removed from government control as possible. They left it in California, where the internet was invented. They wanted it to be led by the technologists and the businesses and the users, and a way for activists and governments and civil society to participate. These were also developed. But they really said, you guys go off and coordinate this yourself. The reason for the contract was this. Back in 1998, it was just a few dozen people in a room. I mean, they were passing the hat around to pay for their lunch money. It was just a group of volunteers getting together to coordinate the internet's addressing system. And so support for the fledgling organization was offered by this contract that they put in place. And now, about a decade and a half later, last spring, the US government said, we're ready to let that contract expire. They said, first of all, ICANN is ready operationally, and the community is ready. This robust, dynamic community is doing a great job of stewarding these systems. Now, what does the community look like today? Well, it looks a lot like you. It looks a lot like the people on this picture. Thousands of people that dedicate hours to set up and establish policies and standards for the internet addressing system that we all take for granted. At our last public meeting, one of 3 that we hold every year, we had over 1,700 participants. They were from 120 countries. There were 100 governments represented. The 300 sessions were live streamed. There was remote participation. They were in 7 languages with simultaneous interpretation. And this is all going on to keep this addressing system working for all of us. Now, when the US said last year we're ready to hand over what they call stewardship of the technical functions to this community, they put in place some stipulations. They said, this community itself has to come up with the solution, and it must be acceptable to the customers and the people that use these address and standards services. They said it must support a multi-stakeholder model, that diverse group that I described. It must support the security, stability, and resiliency of the addressing system, keep the internet open, and above all, not result in another government being in charge or an intergovernmental solution. And so in true ICANN fashion, the community jumped into action. They formed committees. They had about 300 meetings, many conference calls, about 20,000 emails were exchanged. And they've come up with 2 proposals. One is the technical proposal for this transition of the technical functions to go smoothly. And the other parallel proposal is about accountability and how my organization will remain accountable to you and the global stakeholders going forward when the US steps away. Now, you won't notice any difference when this contract expires. Your internet will work the same way it worked the day before on that day. And what I find inspiring, though, is this. It will quietly represent the dawn of a new form of global organization. A multi-stakeholder, a multi-equal stakeholder organization. And what that means is that governments, including the US government, participate on equal footing with the technology experts, with the businesses, with the users like you that have a say. So why is the US doing this now? Well, there's a couple of reasons. If you remember the 3+ billion people of us that are connected on the internet, fewer than 10% are actually based in the United States. And so really this American invention has now become a platform and a gift to humanity. And the US is making good on its promise to let the stakeholders manage it. And you might ask about a few governments, China or Russia or India, that seem to want to assert more control over the internet. But let me tell you, as far as ICANN is concerned, in this community, in this transition, they're at the table. And they're participating in all kinds of policy decisions about how these technical functions will be run. They've been doing so for many, many years. So they are down with the stakeholder model, at least as far as ICANN's work is concerned. What they do on their own portions of the internet is not our concern. So again, as I said, it won't be a noticeable change, but it'll be a significant and inspiring change. We are in the home stretch. There are proposals that are on the table. Actually, even today, as we speak, there's a live online meeting that you can dial into and participate if you want to. But I hope that you'll explore ways to become involved, and I hope that you will show your love for the internet by helping to write its next chapter. Thank you very much.